Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another video on HVSBL podcast. Today I'm joined by Professor Jodi Magness, and we're going to be talking about the presentation that she's going to be giving at SBL tomorrow, and it is titled "The Chicken, the Egg, and the Galilean Ball." So thank you for joining me today, Jodi.
Thanks for having me, Jacob.
Yeah, so can you tell us a little bit about this new archaeological evidence of farming in Galilee?
Right. The evidence actually isn't new, but sort of the synthesis that I'm presenting is new. So let me give a little bit of background about it. It involves a kind of local pottery. Most people are not particularly interested in ancient pottery, but it's one of my fields of specialization. And so there's a particular kind of pottery produced in Roman and late Roman Galilee, which is kitchenware. It's kinds of pottery that are used for cooking, basically. And the most common form of this particular type is what's called a Galilean bowl. So I want you to imagine a sort of a very large circular kind of a casserole-like dish with basically straight or slightly everted sides and a flat base, a big flat base. And this is a kind of cooking vessel that appears in Galilee in the early part of the 1st century AD, and then is common until sometime in the 5th century AD. It goes through a little bit of changes in form, but it basically is very common. And in fact, it's one of the hallmarks of Galilean pottery in this period. So there have been some scholarly discussions and investigations about trying to identify whether this particular kind of bowl or vessel, this Galilean bowl, corresponds with any kind of pottery vessel that is mentioned in rabbinic literature from this period, because the rabbis wrote their works in this period, and many of them were based in Galilee. And there have been some suggestions, but I make a slightly different suggestion than the ones that have been made. And specifically, I identify this as a kind of a vessel that's called a lifsa or an ilpas in rabbinic literature, which corresponds with a very common type of Roman dish, which was used for the preparation of quiches and frittatas. Because if you think about it, a quiche or frittata, basically, what are you doing? You're chopping up, let's say, vegetables or fish or meat or even fruit, and then you beat some eggs and you pour it over that, and then you can either cook it over a fire, cook it on a stove, or bake it, and that would be the difference between, right, a quiche and a frittata. This kind of preparation, these quiches and frittatas, which were called in the Roman world patinae and patellae, were very popular among the Romans. The Romans loved eggs, and dishes that were prepared in this way were very popular with them. And so in the Roman world, we find a particular kind of pottery vessel that looks very much like the Galilean bowl that was used to prepare these quiches and frittatas. And my suggestion is that that's what we have with Galilean bowls, that they were used to prepare this kind of dish, and that they're actually mentioned in rabbinic literature. And when you look at the references in rabbinic literature to this kind of lifsa or ilpas, it's in connection with the preparation of egg dishes. And so this leads me to suggest that in the early 1st century AD, Galileans began to prepare these sort of quiches and frittatas that were very popular among other populations in the Roman world. And there's a couple of interesting things about this. For one thing, there's no corresponding local type of pottery vessel in the southern part of the country. So in Judea, for example, we don't have Galilean type bowls. There are some imported Roman pottery vessels that are used to prepare these kind of dishes. But this kind of local imitation, which becomes of this pottery vessel used to prepare this particular kind of dish, which is so popular in Galilee, never really takes off in Judea. So there's kind of an interesting thing here. There's an aspect of, let's say, I'll use the word Romanization, even though a lot of scholars don't like that word anymore. But the kind of Roman influence that we see here on the dining habits specifically of Galileans, including Jews, Galilean Jews, in the early 1st century AD. And I was almost tempted to call this paper, Did Jesus Eat Quiche? Because this kind of vessel actually appears more or less during the lifetime of Jesus. And so it's quite possible that Jesus also ate these sorts of dishes. So that's the first part of the paper, sort of looking at this kind of vessel, what it was used for, these kind of egg preparations, quiches and frittatas. And then that leads to the question of, well, that means that they must have had a lot of eggs in Galilee, and that means that they must have been raising a lot of chickens and hens in Galilee. And I started to do some research on that and found out that it's exactly in this period, now we're talking, first century AD on, that in the Roman world we find the industrial production or raising of chickens and hens and the production of eggs. And I think, therefore, that indirectly the popularity of these Galilean bowls indicates, indirectly again, that there was industrial scale production of chickens and eggs, like a poultry industry, so to speak, in Galilee in the Roman period. Why we don't find it in Judea, I don't know. Did the Judeans not like eggs so much? Maybe the climatic conditions in Judea weren't as suitable as they were in Galilee for raising that scale of chickens and hens and eggs. Not sure what lies behind it, but at any rate, this sort of industrial scale production of poultry in Galilee, 1st to 5th centuries, corresponds pretty exactly with the evidence that we have from the rest of the Roman world for poultry industries. The final little bit of this that I will mention that isn't in the paper tomorrow is that I've stumbled across some evidence recently that suggests that eggshells are actually quite common in archaeological excavations in Galilee. So that's kind of the next thing that I need to do, is to start looking at the actual excavated remains from different sites to see how common eggshells are. Part of the problem here is that I think in a lot of excavations, eggshells are so fragile that you wouldn't necessarily recover them and save them. But in my own excavations, we do have eggshells. And it's leading me to think that maybe if we look at it further, we'll find actual physical evidence for the raising of poultry and the consumption of eggs in Galilee in this period.
Well, thank you for joining me today, Jodi Magness.
Thank you for having me, Jacob.
Hello viewers, thanks for watching this video from the History Valley YouTube channel. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And if any of you wish to further support this channel, please consider checking out this channel's Patreon page and becoming a patron, and or donate through PayPal or through Super Chat during your live stream. Thank you.